Yes. Kind of seems multicolored in here, which
Yeah, that's not a good sign.
kind of worries me about how well it's mixing.
It's not mixing very well.
It doesn't look like it's mixing very well.
Started out mixing great.
Maybe the gray is the color it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Like it started out actually mixing poor. Oh God. What have I done? So I've got the other half of the valve body out there in the sun, hard setting up my epoxy for the governor port that I filled in. And I just wanted to go through real quick the modifications we made to this valve body. This is all very experimental. I don't know how it's gonna act. What I did was I just went through the operation of the valve body on this transmission for the Jatco. I read all about what all the valves do and what ports are used for what, and during gear changes, what happens, and made all my changes based on that. So no changes were made to the manual valve, which is what distributes most of our line pressure, or which is what distributes the line pressure to the components that it needs to go to for certain gear actions. We did modify our pressure regulator valve here. This is what establishes the line pressure. I added a small spring inside of the larger spring to add a little bit of pressure to it, and installed one washer to just kind of shim it a little further still. The pressure modulator valve over here, I've got locked in the high pressure position. Basically that valve's purpose is to reduce line pressure during higher speed cruising when not as much pressure is really needed, because most of your torque occurs at lower speeds. So with that being locked, we're gonna have maximum pressure at all times. I made some big modifications to the 2-3 shift valve. I actually ground away one of the lobes of the valve, and that was necessary because reverse needs to pass through this valve fluid needs to pass through this valve for reverse to work. So I had to grind off that part of the valve and then lock the valve engaged. And what we're trying to do with that is turn it basically into a completely manual valve body. Anytime the shift selector is in drive, it will be third gear, no matter how fast the car is going. Finally, one of the last thing I did that I can think of at this moment is I drilled out this hole right here. This second hole right there, I oversized to be much larger. And that is the feed hole for the second gear brake band. So we should be able to get fluid out to it a lot faster. We're gonna be running much more line pressure. That's gonna be full manual valve body, blocked off any pressure from going to the governor. And I think that's all that I did. Oh, and then I have I have locked the throttle valve to be on max pressure also. So I'll put a gauge on it. We'll get some before line pressure readings and then a line pressure reading after swapping out the valve body. See what kind of difference it makes. Make sure it's not making 1,000 PSI, because I don't really want to grenade the whole thing right off the bat. But as long as it gave us, a good little 20, 30 PSI increase on line pressure, which sounds actually like a shitload, and that's kind of what we're targeting. And we're going to throw it in this weekend and see how it acts. All right, folks, we got old Goldie up on the lift and our new modified valve body right here. The old one has already been cut out and removed, or cut out. It's been taken out, and we're about to pop this bad boy back in. And then we're gonna try it out and make sure all the gears move in the forward direction. And if everything works awesome, then we may end up at the track tonight. All right, so we're just finishing up. All right, so I'm just finishing up, getting the valve body put in the Z. It fits just like it should. I went ahead and added a second shim to my pressure regulating valve, because I was looking at the other valve body and the one that I had and just kind of feeling the difference, and I didn't really feel any difference. So I went ahead and put a second shim in it. So we should see some increase in line pressure. I don't think it's going to be very substantial. But yeah, so the new valve body's in there. If everything works right, we should have all our gears, and it should be full manual. And with a little luck, the increased line pressure will help the transmission hold a little bit better, so we can run it a little bit longer. Matt's not here right now, and here's why. So because of the gentleman that owns this shop also owns 3 other shops, and had some manager troubles at one of the other stores. And basically, long story short, Matt was called upon to step into that position of store manager at one of our other locations. So Matt is no longer going to be working here at this spot with me anymore. It's not that far away. It's probably like a 15-minute drive from here. So he'll just have to close up, truck it over here after he closes the shop every day that we're working on the car. So a little bit of an inconvenience, kind of a pain in the ass, but anyway, I'll just have to hold it down and get the ball rolling on things while I wait for him, and so that way we're still staying productive. But for that reason, Matthew will no longer be working here at the shop with me, and that's just a change that I'm gonna have to get used to. But anyway, we're gonna go ahead and get the pan on. I got a new gasket for the car from O'Reilly's for $6. Wasn't sure if I'd need it, but I'm sure glad I ordered it because the cork one that was on it totally fell apart. So we're gonna get this on there, and then I need to also look at the wiper situation because I did get some wiper arms to hopefully get the wiper system working on the car again. Most of the time it didn't really matter to not have it, but honestly it's nice to have. We've gotten caught in the rain in the car a couple of times now. The wiper system doesn't weigh anything, and honestly I never could fully remove it because I'm not really sure how the linkage comes out of that cowl area, so I just kind of left all that stuff in there. But we did decide we want to have the wiper system just in case need arises, but also like at the track, if you find, we'll get there sometimes, and when it gets dark and all the big lights are shining down on you, you'll notice it's real foggy on the windshield, and it'll be nice to have a means to kind of wipe that shit away. But anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and get this thing back together and just leave it on the lift. I'll run it through the gears and make sure nothing's like binding up or doing anything crazy, and we'll see how it goes from there. All right, so we're gonna start it up now, run it through the gears, check the fluid level, and see if it goes through all the gears. The only question is reverse gonna work? And also, are any of the gears gonna work? So Matt's here now, he's joined the party. So I'm gonna have him hold the camera and just try to film any impeding explosions that might occur. One area that I'm kind of concerned about that we're gonna wanna keep an eye on is cooler hoses, because we're gonna be running more pressure, and I don't think we're using PTFE hoses on this. I feel like they're just shitty hoses. So I'll have to keep an eye on that. So watch for that. I'm gonna just do first gear, make it roll, then stop the wheels, go second gear, make it roll, then stop the wheels, and then do third gear, just to make sure nothing like binds up violently.
Okay.
And then we'll try it with the wheels just shifting in motion.
Reverse is one we were worried about. Reverse is good. Yeah, baby.
It can do first gear and drive. It might be able to do first gear and drive, but I know it cannot do second gear and drive. So we need to just use drive as third only for the foreseeable future. So. Remember it flaring up real bad in the 2-3 shift previously also.
I don't feel like it flared up like that. I thought it was something road.
Everything we do, so because I have the throttle valve locked, everything we do at hard throttle is going to feel like it would at hard throttle. So really, I expect a lot much harder shifts than I felt there. Let's try again. Yeah, I feel like it dropped back down to the first.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't feel great.
What happens if I just leave it and drive? We don't have any governor pressure anymore. No, that's a third. Yeah, what's happening on that shift? Not feel promising.
No, it didn't. The RPMs ran way up.
It's like it downshifted.
Yeah.
First. Second. So it's catching third at higher RPMs.
Yeah, but
I don't know how to lock first out of drive.
so you think it's physically dropping back
I think it's dropping back into first,
and then shifting up?
and then at a higher speed it's shifting to
I
third,
don't know.
which has everything to do with the 1-2 shift valve
Okay.
and throttle pressure. Fuck, didn't really consider that.
Do we want to take the valve body back out and examine it?
Yeah, we might need. I don't want to drop back into first going fucking
70 miles an hour right now.
Yeah, I know. I don't think it would. But my question is,
Why it's not going straight to third?
Okay, so here's where we're at. So, in drive, I wanted to only have third gear. I successfully managed to make it not go into second gear in drive, but neglected to figure out what first gear would do when you hit drive at lower speeds. And so right now, in drive, it's dropping back. So it'll go like in low gear, it'll be in first. We hit second, second's fine. We hit third, it drops back into first because it's lacking the governor pressure that's needed to move it into third at that point because I've blocked off the governor. So we're gonna make another attempt at this. Basically gonna just keep it simple. The governor's not really an enemy for us. Also, another thing I did was lock the 2-3 valve, but that was because of the governor delete. That's fine, that's normal.
Look at these though. That's metal.
Bro, every time we pull the pan off of this thing, there's
It's
metal.
always shiny, but these look like hairs.
I don't know. We probably broke it. Anyway, so what we're gonna do now is go back to the other valve body that I have not epoxied in any channels on. And I'm going to shim the pressure regulator valve on that one so that we have increased line pressure. And I'm going to lock the pressure modifier valve, which is the valve that's responsible for reducing line pressure at higher speeds. So in theory, at higher speeds, you don't need as much hold because the car is already moving versus low RPM, low speed, or not low RPM, but low speed, low gear, where you have the highest torque, you need more apply pressure for everything to hold. So we are going to lock that modifier valve so it's stuck in high pressure all the time. So at higher speeds, we still are having that good hold. And we're going to shim the regulator valve so we have higher line pressure, but we're gonna go ahead and just run it with the governor. So drive's still gonna work for drive. And we're also not gonna lock the throttle valve because the throttle valve is doing what it should do anyway. When we're flooring it, we're getting higher throttle pressure. Honestly, it was kind of unnecessary to lock that valve. All it does is just lower line pressure when you're not flooring it. This will get us better life out of the pump anyway. So we went with
Always good.
we went with an extreme strategy here, and it's not working. So we're gonna go back, step it back a bit,
Dial it back.
and yeah, just
sounds
be a little
good.
bit more conservative, but still make the changes that are gonna.
Very unusual for us.
Yeah, well, we tried, so can't say we didn't try. But increased line pressure and eliminating that modifier valve is going to be key to improving everything. But otherwise, like the separator plate modifications, the opening up the orifice for the band so it comes on harder and faster, that's going to remain, which was on the other valve body too.
Which is really the main things that we wanted to achieve with this modification anyway. I think that the governor and everything was just kind of a little bit extra, maybe.
Yeah, I was just kind of hoping to like
while we were in there, just go ahead and do it. I gotcha.
Try to make sure we have plenty of fluid volume, but I don't think it's hurting us. So
it's just good news that we find that hopefully the problem is with the modifications that we didn't necessarily need.
Yeah, I thought that might be the case, but what I didn't want to do is put it in and have it just act exactly the same.
Once we put it back together, we need to put something on there to monitor line pressure, I think, before we go drive.
There's a port on the side that we can measure line pressure.
Nice.
And the specs are on the computer. I know what's normal. so we can make sure that there was an increase there.
Yeah.
But really just a couple of washers to just tighten up the space, the area that that spring sits, and we'll be good to go.
Sweet.
So that's not going to take long at all. We already pretty much got the valve body off. I already know what to do. We're just going to swap a couple of things over from the other valve body, or from this one to the other one, and we'll try again.
Yep.
It's not looking like we're going to have time to go racing, but if
Maybe
this
we'll
just,
make some hits on the highway, though.
Yeah.
Shit.
I mean, if this just goes exceptionally well,
Yeah.
it's not even 8 yet, man.
We'll see.
Yeah. We'll see where we end up.
I don't know if we'll have time to race, but maybe we can go fucking smoke some trumps on 380 or something.
Yes.
We'll see.
What's up, folks? Stevo coming at you. Right here we got a 3N71B transmission used in many Nissan, Datsuns, Mazdas from the 80s era. Some previously. This is going to be one out of a 83 ZX 2+2. They're all pretty similar, but there is some distinct differences. Let's go ahead and get started here. What we got is just an old transmission out of an old 81.
I think it was 81.
2+2 Datsun, if I'm not mistaken.
This thing had been sitting clearly for a while.
Yep. And the plan is we're going to tear it down. We're going to replace all the soft bits in it. I already pulled the pan. I don't see anything real troubling in here. So I think we'll be able to get away with just replacing all the soft perishable bits. And then we're going to take it, put it in our 83 ZX Turbo, and go in import face-off 2021.
I would just like to say this will be the second fresh rebuild that we have one import face-off with. I'm just going to go ahead and call that out right now.
Actually, I think it'd be the third. Sorry to correct you, brother.
Third?
I think the first two were done on some of our Jatco work. Also.
Well, the second one was done the night before, if you remember.
It's true. With all used parts.
Yeah.
But
No
that's another
test drive.
story.
Yeah.
So here we are. We're going to tear this puppy down. We got some new soft bits coming for it, but let's just tear it apart and see what kind of damage we got. Matt, could I get you to go ahead and remove this rear mount here?
Sure.
So it looks like we got about 12 right there.
Where's your impact?
And a nut down here. Down there. I got a bigger one now.
Whoa!
I've had that since you worked here.
What? Oh, I didn't know this replaced your regular impact.
So you're going to want to throw a 12 on there and get this little bracket off back here. We're not going to need it where we're going, brother. And I'm going to start taking these pan bolts off. Not expecting to see any carnage in here, just some wear and tear. Dark, she's a little chunky. Ooh,
that's not promising.
Alright, so I got that bracket up. Let's get this bracket out of the way too there, brother. We're not gonna need it either. So since we're putting this in place of one we already have installed, we already have much of the hardware already ready to go. So we can take a lot of this extra junk off. And I like to hold on to these banjo seals because they're kind of special for this transmission. Although we won't really need the banjo bolt, we'll just kind of stick it in the scrap bin. You'll notice those bolt heads are special. They got a flat side on them that keeps them from rotating. We're going to want to make sure that we keep those around because they are special. But we do have lots of these mounts. It's important to note the direction of the... See, there's like a diagonal bend to this mount. The diagonal of the mount is kind of going from the front of the transmission
towards the tail
towards
shaft.
the tail shaft. So, something we're going to want to make note of. Otherwise,
Jesus
it may not fit very well when we go back together.
I was hoping I could just flick that motherfucker out of there.
Just go ahead and take this one out. It'll slide up there and get out of your way.
Yeah.
You got it?
It's just gummy.
Just try to keep the fasteners together. You take off. The easiest thing you can do here
Just put them back in the mount.
is just put them back where they go. From where's they came. I'm gonna go ahead and pull this valve body while Matt's working on that. This is a totally stock transmission. I don't see any signs of any modification so far. The valve body's gonna come up. All these bolts are a little bit different in length, but they really only make sense in a couple spots, so it's not that hard to figure out. And we're gonna have to slide it away. We got some pegs sitting here for our throttle modulator, and then also our downshift valve's got a little peg sticking out of it too. We can leave it still, but this one will come out. So we want to make sure we keep track of that.
Is this always brass looking right here?
It is.
So the brass one's going to stay in, just anybody that's rebuilding it. The silver one's the one that's going to fall out.
Now, we personally don't use the downshift valve. We don't have any wires going to it. We don't care about it. It doesn't do anything for us.
But it seals off part of the transmission, so
Yeah.
that's important.
All right, so valve body's off. Let's go ahead and zip this bell housing. Actually, take the tail shaft off since you're on that end already. Should be a bunch of 12s. That's going to be a 14 you got on there. You're probably going to need a wobble too. Wobbles are there on your left. While you're that, I'll start taking the bell housing bolts out.
These are all the same, right?
Yep.
Just sit on there, dude. I know you're grimy, but come on. Rotate.
Yeah, but that bell housing you're holding on to is about to pop off.
Don't worry, I got it.
And its bolts back in the pan. Bell housing and its bolts right there. You might want to use a little dead blow mallet to pop that thing loose. Hit the tip of it where your hand is. There you go. Alright, just be able to wiggle it off. Okay, now you'll see there's a speed sensor bolted onto here, right here.
Yep.
That rides along this spline area on the output
We've
shaft.
seen that. I've seen that before.
This is your parking pawl right here.
Yep.
The way it works is when you throw this thing in park, this little stick.
Here's the parking pole.
This little stick right here will push out and it wedges itself in here and that pushes the pawl out. The pawl acts on this toothed wheel right here to hold you in park. And that's how that's done.
And that is how you do that.
And that's the end of that chapter. All right, I just found a washer. It was probably off one of those. Do those have washers on them?
These.
They all have washers? Check again, because it came off of...
I just picked one up off the table.
Oh, we have a mystery washer. That's exciting. All right, well, onward we go. All right, so now we're going to take off our second gear servo housing here. So we're going to, there's a couple of tins.
Just out of curiosity, you see any signs this thing's been opened up before?
Not yet, no. The gasket's really hard and doesn't
Yeah,
seem
they
like
just
anything's
split apart on
crashed.
this tail shaft when I pulled it off.
So
Tail
on
shaft
this,
housing.
on the, so you're keeping all those fasteners together, right?
They're all together in their thing.
So you'll see this thing will be kind of stuck. It's got a seal on the inside that we kind of need to work loose. So this hammer's a little overkill, but I'm just kind of tapping on it. We're just going to get it to spin a little bit. And then we can take a flathead. This flathead we can kind of stick underneath here and just try to get it to pop up.
It's moving. Hell yeah.
And it's just going to come up like that. You're going to see this come out. It's got the pin. This is your adjustment here for, move over. Yeah! So this is your adjustment here to adjust your band. Band adjustment is very important, as we well know around here. Spring, we're just going to keep it with that assembly.
If anybody's doing a first time teardown, probably just important to mention, don't remove this bolt.
Yeah, you don't need to actually remove this nut or this shaft at all. But we do want to keep this together. There's some important seals here that you may not want to screw with at all. And this is actually a piston. So this housing in here will move in here, like that. So you'll see there's a seal here, there's a seal here. And so we want to keep all that stuff together. See how that pops in? And that's
Spring
your
on
return
top.
spring.
And then our bolts.
Sit over there with the 3 bolts that came out of it. Okay, and now we're ready to pull the pump. Start tearing this thing out from the front. So we already got our bolts out because they're the same bolts that hold the bell housing. So all we need to do, what I usually do,
tabby tap from the back end here.
is I'll just get, yep, exactly, just get a 5 bar behind it right there. Take our hammer.
Yep.
Hit
Keep going.
Keep wiggling. Hold on, your band's getting all bound up a little bit. So you want to give it a good pop, all right, so you can get it out a little more. There she is, easy, easy. All right, so that came off of our band. I know where that goes. So So here's our band, which is something that we feel is definitely a weak point of this transmission from what we've seen so far. And then here, you see this front drum, the front clutch came out with this. So let me just separate those. Hopefully. Yeah, come on, baby. And this is, you can smell how old this thing is. Let me move this. Slide the camera over this way a little bit so we're capturing a little more. Actually, we're both just soiled as fuck. I'll just kind of turn it. There we go. All right, so what we have here is our front clutch housing is catching on the rings. These steel rings on the pump body. There it is.
There it is.
All right, so this actually should still be on there. We'll just save that for now. All right, so here's our pump. We have steel rings here, and think about,
I see some marks on them.
transmission teardown is a lot of inspection. If you can't pay attention to detail, then you need to slow down and take notes.
Make sure you don't miss something because you'll be doing all this over again for one
it's
little
just
mistake.
like perfect example is our Turbo 400 where we didn't notice that the pump was worn.
Exactly.
Ended up tearing it all back apart. So this is our pump assembly. It's got your front seal right here. It's got another O-ring around the outer edge. And it's going to have a gasket that goes on the inside where it mates up with the body. These holes here are where a lot of the fluid, is where fluid is passaged on to other areas of the transmission. So we want to make sure our seals are good. There's this little O-ring here that's got these little ears on it. And we need to keep that with the component in the order in which it came out. The easiest thing to do here for teardown's sake is to set things in exactly the order from which they came. So we're going to put our pump here. We need to take it apart and inspect it for wear, but we're going to just save that for later. Put that there. Now we have our forward clutch, or actually the front clutch it's called. And in here, we can see all our clutch discs. So to inspect that, we're just going to pop this O-ring out, or snap ring out here. This is really easy to do. Just going to start it on one edge, bring it loose, lay it down. All right. And there's all the clutches.
Nice. Beautiful.
So the piston is in here. We're not going to fool with the piston here. I've had nothing but trouble out of aftermarket kits and their pistons. I believe this piston's probably fine. We can check it with a quick air check through one of these holes. That's still to be determined. But because I took it out this way, I'm going to lay it down the way it came out. Exactly that. And same thing with the clutches. So this is our wave plate. You see how it's got like a concave to it? It won't sit flat. See how it's higher in the middle? If I flip it, it's higher on the edges. This is a wave plate. Wave plates are used to soften shifts. They cushion. We don't need that in a race transmission, so what we might be looking to do if I can source the parts, since these clutches are so healthy, I might just take one of these frictions
And put it in,
and put it in with all the new ones.
Nice.
And that's going to give us more grip on the forward clutch, and we'll just displace this wave plate altogether. But again, I'm going to lay these face down from the way they came out, right next to the drum.
Here's a question. So we're estimating about 200,000 miles or so on this transmission. It's got healthy clutch discs in it. This has clearly been rebuilt already at some point, right?
I wouldn't make that assertion.
Really?
I mean, these engines are pretty, like, this was not out of a turbo car. Yeah. This was out of a naturally aspirated car.
Right.
These transmissions are a little more robust than they really needed to be back then. They didn't really know how to build things all that cheap. So I could be dead wrong here, but just judging by what I see in the gaskets that are on here and like any printing that's on them or the condition of them, if they're not original, they're very old. So maybe it had a refresh years ago, but you can see looking at this band, there's like little cracks. You see all the cracks along it? And I think just age.
I've seen a lot of like linear marks like this on things we've been pulling out of this already.
Yeah. And I mean, there may be something to that, but what I think causes these cracks, those don't look like wear cracks to me. And if it was heat cracks, we would see like bluing of the metal parts.
Of course, yeah. Okay.
So I think it's just age.
Yeah,
I think it's just the age of it. So
okay.
we're going to put the band back around the drum it came from.
I'm going to hit the pisser. I'll be right back.
Yep. All right, so the next thing component to come out is going to be, so our input shaft could have come out at any point. It pulls right out before you take anything out. This will come out without even removing the pump. This is an area that I found some wear in our original transmission. Actually, the input shaft was stuck in the transmission because of a problem with the bushing on the output shaft. So this little leg here slides into the output shaft, and they were seized together. I actually had to like clamp this in a vise and beat the whole transmission case down to get them separated. Not the case here. I'm going to put this in front of the pump because it can literally be the last part to be installed. But then we have our, this is our second, our rear clutch, and it's got needle bearings in it here. We want to make note of these needle bearings because they need to mate up with the next component in line. So actually these needle bearings made it up with the pump, and that's where that little eared washer that I took out, it rides on these needles. All right, so now we have the rear clutch assembly out, and we're gonna do the same thing. Pop our snap ring off, starting on one edge. Just working our way around, comes out real easy. So you wanna make note of this, another eared washer. This is going to be a washer that acts on the next needle bearing in line. So I'm going to put this down here next to this. Okay, we got our piston inside the housing. This is the rear clutch. Again, a lot of life left on these clutches. You can tell by the grooves in them how distinct the lines are in the grooves. Anything that's worn is going to be looking smooth instead of these. These are
Maybe
great.
just traces of lines.
These are great looking clutches, and once again, we have a wave plate, and again, we might try to delete that, you know, if we can. So I'm going to put our drum there, and of course, we're just looking at everything. There's little needle bearings. You'll see in the middle there. There's a little needle bearing, and we just want to make sure we check all our little bearings along the way, if for any trouble. Everything's looked really good so far.
Wow,
Right.
yeah, it really does look how clean. It's amazing to me every time we tear one of these transmissions down how clean metal from 1981, 83 or whatever looks when it's just been sitting in even old fluid, you know?
It really is something how well they hold up. But they were just over-engineered.
Yeah.
And you know, we've done really well with these transmissions in the past considering what the kind of power they
Yeah.
were meant to be used with.
Even ones that have been empty, I don't think we've ever cracked one open and seen like rusting on the inside or anything like
No,
that.
nothing
Yeah.
severe. I mean, this transmission's probably sat in a junkyard for years. I mean, you can tell by the smells. It's really old. So this is going to be our, I'm not sure what this component would be called, but it houses our planetary gear, our front planetary. And so again, we got needle bearings. We're just going to set it in line. We got some more needle bearings in here. Everything just looks super clean. We're going to look at the teeth on our ring gears and our sun gears. I hear something clinking around, and I know what that is. It's all coming back to me now. There is a smooth washer in here that's extremely difficult to get out because it's kind of trapped by all the planetary gears. But on the planetary set, we're going to look for any kind of play at all. We shouldn't feel any wobbling at all from side to side. Now, you might get a little bit this way, going lengthways. There's a specification to measure there for an allowable tolerance. But as far as radial movement, we shouldn't have any radial movement on any of these. These all feel great. This is the component that failed in our first jack co. We had a failure of the bearing on the planetary, and it resulted in needle bearings falling out, and things went catastrophic from there. This one feels to be in great shape. We have a smooth eared washer here too. You're going to find one of these washers pretty much between every component, so it's very important that you catch it, because if you don't pay attention, you might set the part down, it might fall out, and you don't know where it goes. But anywhere you have a needle bearing, conversely, there's going to be a smooth bearing that pushes up against it. So we're just going to lay that there next to that and press on. Here we have a sun shell and the sun gear. So it's important here to note, because this is a mistake I've made in the past, is not remembering if the sun gear goes inside the shell or if it comes in from the back of the shell.
I remember that, yeah.
But we'll know here, we'll pay attention, and we know it goes into the sun shell. They're helical cut teeth, so you know it's got to line up just perfect. It doesn't just fall into place, but it goes in on that side. On the back of it, another smooth eared washer. Okay, guess what that's going to act against? The next needle bearing. So we're going to leave it all in order, same way it came out, and press on. I feel like there's a snap ring on this one, and there is. Okay. So this is one of the harder steps, but still not that bad. You know.
I just want to show them what you're doing here.
All right, so we're gonna go in here, grab the snap ring. Snap rings are a big pain in the butt. Nobody likes them. They're no fun. But there it is. Came out pretty easy. I like when they do that. All right. So that's going to allow us to get this off, but I think we can pull the output shaft now. Yep. So now we can take the output shaft. That snap ring was riding right here. So we'll just take a quick look at the splines, make sure we don't have any weird wear. If there's areas where bushings ride, you can tell because they'll be like real smooth and polished looking. If you see any kind of grinding there, any kind of rough surface, that's a problem that we'll need to address. But that looks great. This is a pretty happy looking transmission.
I know. I've been real surprised, honestly.
I think, yep. All right, so now we're going to pull out the next assembly. This is going to be another Planetary. This is the rear Planetary. You'll see needle bearings again on top. Those that washer I pointed out before, that's what acts on that. And these will come out of their spot. They do move, but they get pretty good retention just from fluid, so best to just leave them in there. Remember where they go. We need to inspect this Planetary, so we are going to go ahead and pull the snap ring out of it real quick. You want to take this one off? Give it a shot. Real easy. Once you get that first lip unhinged, then it just comes right around. See how easy that is? Now we're just going to lay this. We'll go ahead and start over here.
Start a new stack, yeah.
All right, I'm gonna put that down. Here's our Planetary.
Nice.
Don't lose track of your needle bearing. It's holding there right now. It'll stay, but it might come loose, so keep an eye on it.
So just as somebody who is not as familiar with rebuilding transmissions, I'm always surprised to see snap rings like this holding together something that's been taking so much power from the modifications we've made and stuff, and like just that little guy right there.
That's all it takes,
yeah.
dude. When you don't have things sliding and impacting, you know, things are held compact.
Right.
There's not that
It's
much.
not like you're snapping against it
Exactly.
all the time.
It's
Yeah,
not an
exactly,
impacting force. So we're going to take a look at this Planetary, same way. Make sure we don't have any excessive play on our planet gears. We have another smooth toothed washer here. They're going to be everywhere, guys. You got to be looking out for them. Because when one falls out on the floor and you don't know where the hell it came from, you're going to have a bad time. Especially this transmission, there's not a whole lot of info out there for it.
Sure.
So
And
take
that's
your
not
time.
something that's going to come in a normal rebuild kit.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You just want to pay attention to everything. And then here is our low reverse clutch set down here. This is actually going to be toothed to the case. So when you got another snap ring we got to pull off, the snap ring is kind of tricky because you got to reach your
Do you
whole
want me to
damn
slide
arm
this
in
over here next to the snap ring?
there. Yes.
I
Put
got
that right in line next to that. I forgot to look at that. All right. Hold on. This comes apart a little more. Let me
Here, let me hold this.
All right. So check our needle bearings on the inside. This sun gear will come out of there. It'll have a needle bearing on the back of it. Don't forget it.
That's it.
Now this is our sprag. Okay, this is another part that can fail and cause issue. This sprag acts upon the hub in here. So you see this is part of the case, this part right here.
Show it to the camera.
This part of the case, and it's smooth on the outside, and that's what the sprag acts against. I don't really plan to remove the sprag. It looks okay. There's a snap ring that allows you to remove it, but I'm just going to kind of look at it. See all those little things, all those little.
They look nice and smooth. And
That lets it. That's a one-way clutch. This lets this spin one way, but it locks the other way.
like a torque converter.
Mhm.
Yep.
And typically sprags and one-way clutches or one-way rollers are used for engine braking. They don't usually.
Okay.
They're not usually part of like holding the torque.
Sure.
Usually it's just kind of to keep the engine, keep things spinning when you're
Yeah.
engine braking. So I believe this engine only has engine braking in second. I could be wrong about that. Don't quote me. All right. So then we're gonna set that right there. And now we're gonna take out our low reverse. Once again, it's just gonna have a snap ring. I'm gonna pry it out. I'm gonna stick
See
my.
if you can spin a little so you can see it this way.
And this one's kind of tricky. Hand me that pocket screwdriver over there.
I got this right.
Spin it back a little bit, right there. Create some separation. Pry it up with this guy. There we go. Once you got an edge, we can just grab it. Grab and bend and pry and.
Here, before you pull it all the way out, I just want to show them where it's at. Yeah. So that just came out right at the bottom.
So that ring's gonna come out, and it's gonna be next in line.
So that was sitting right
right above that clutch
here.
pack.
Okay, yeah.
So this clutch pack binds to the case. Like that's its job.
Yep, okay. And it binds to the case through these teeth through here.
Mhm.
Yep,
So the
okay.
inner ones are going to grab onto this hub right here, where the one-way roller is.
Right.
The outer ones are going to grab the case. I'm just going to dump this right into my hand like this.
Oh, you got it? Okay.
Never gonna flip it. Okay. Got them.
Oh, I heard something fall.
No, they didn't. I got it. That was my glove popping.
Oh, okay.
Flip it back over. Let's make sure we got all of them.
There you go.
Yep. All right. So those came out like this. This is your low reverse. once again, I mean, man,
Pristine.
we could have just thrown this in the car
Yeah.
and sent it, honestly. Maybe we do. Look how thick they are.
I know.
And once again, wave plate in the back.
Sure. But even if we do throw these back in, there's still changes and advantages we can make by replacing those wave plates. You know,
Yeah.
and especially
It'd be foolish to put them back in. I mean, because especially looking at the condition of the band, how it's cracking up, the clutch material on these soft
Right.
discs could be compromised also.
And we've had a lot of luck for 2 years with just thrown together, not even thrown together, pretty much thrown in the car transmissions.
Yeah.
And
That's
I think our luck will run out at some point. So I think doing the due diligence has shown some maturity from us.
Yeah, I mean, to spend 100 and whatever bucks and,
Yeah.
I mean, get a better opportunity to learn about these transmissions, I'd love to just improve them rather than just replace it with some GM P's,
Yeah.
which is Plan B. Don't get me wrong. We have one over here.
Yeah, it's been sitting there.
But these transmissions are great. And honestly, the similarities between the Jatco 3N71B like this and the Turbo 400 are very few. They have, as far as operation, they have the same number of sprags. I'm sorry,
The differences are very few.
the differences are very few. They have the same number of planetaries. They have the same number of clutch packs. They have the same number of bands, kind of. There's a second band in the Turbo 400 that you take out when you do a shift kit anyway.
I say the band's giving us the biggest problem. So
Yeah, I mean, these are really simple. The only thing I wish I could really find a way to improve is the band. It's just not very robust. It's very thin. It's very narrow. So this is the governor assembly as well as the parking gear, if you will, in the back.
Okay.
And so it's got some rings back here that'll come.
So this is what acts on the parking pole. This
Yeah.
is the parking pole.
That is what pushes the pawl. The pawl is the leg that goes.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool.
This is your governor assembly right here. And you got once again, guys, don't start sleeping on these
Yeah,
tooth
don't
washers.
be sleeping on them tooth
They're
washers.
everywhere, dude. They're everywhere. All right, so we'll set that there. And there's another roller bearing in here that we might just leave in there if it'll stay. I just pulled it out. So anywhere you see a roller, you should never put a component up against this. It needs a smooth washer. Everywhere you see a roller, you make sure you got a smooth washer. I'm gonna go ahead and just stick this right here. And that's pretty much it, guys. This thing's tore down basically to its bare case, besides just the lever assembly and these little modulators over here. But that's pretty much it. There's another piston down here for your low reverse. We're not screwing with any pistons on this build. I've had nothing but bad luck with the seals that we replace them with. So that's as far as we're tearing this thing down. Let's not forget this guy.
And just, what was that, 45 minutes, maybe? 30?
It was fast.
Yeah.
It was fast. Cool. So we're going to get this thing cleaned up, throw it back together with some new frictions and some new seals, and we should have a nice sturdy 3N71 Jatco to send to Z with that import face-off. Hopefully have this thing buttoned up within a couple of weeks.